Hey y'all, Kimberly Gaffney with Kimberly Gaffney and Associates Realty. This is part two of my background and my resume uh, with me being in real estate for 20 years, right at 20 years, and how I got there. And y'all, I had to take my hair down. If you watched the last video, that that headband was making my head hurt. I'm not used to having headbands on, and I got a headache right now, but I love doing videos and telling people about me, and so hopefully I get some business. But so if you haven't watched the other video, dated today, please go watch them first before you come to this one. All right, I appreciate that. So I told you how I decided to become a real estate agent. I had wanted to become a realtor back in the 90s, and right when I was about to do it, I was married at the time. Um, a real estate agent had been kidnapped, and her life was taken, and she just lived right up the road in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I was married, like I said. Um, my husband said, "No, that's too dangerous. You're not doing that job. You need to take care of the kids." And I was working too. I already had a job, y'all, but I was wanting to change my careers. So because of my children being young, my youngest was born in '86. That's Alex, and he'll be 40 this year. And my oldest, he's my oldest. My youngest now, Daniel was the last one. Daniel was born in 1990, and he'll be 35 this year. And he actually is a real estate agent, and he works for me. He's a realtor, and he has been a realtor for almost 10 years now. He's followed in mom's footsteps, and he will take over my business if that time ever comes that I'm not here no more. But so I postponed that goal and basically was just a mom. And I apologize, but I am in a rocker recliner that is so comfortable, and it is just habit to sit here and rock. So I hope that's not bothering y'all. I'm gonna try and keep my feet on the floor, be still. Um, okay, so I grew up in a broken home. My dad left my mom when I was a baby. I think their divorce was final when I was 6 years old. Listening to my mom, God rest her soul, she said that we lived shoebox to shoebox. My mama, my brother Kenny, God rest his soul, and me. And all I knew was there was family there. No matter where we stayed, if it was with people, which was most of the time, they were family. And family was always there helping my mom. And you know, back in the 70s, I was I think I started school in 1968. So just say the 70s. That's when my mom really, really, really had a hard time. I watched her go through so much dealing with courts, dealing with the family court stuff, you know, her trying to get some money from my dad to help put food on the table because we were having to eat at other people's houses. Okay. And my mom worked. She either worked at Huntley's up in York, South Carolina. That used to be Huntley's. Um, that was a knitting mill. And then she also worked for Smith Enterprises here in Rock Hill. They made Easter baskets, and that was assembly line work. And she also worked for Freedman's Jewelers. And I was just a little girl then, uptown when it was uptown Rock Hill on Main Street. Um, my maiden name is Jackson. Um, the Jackson family. My grandfather was a Young Construction Company. Um, and that was I didn't even realize all that, y'all, growing up that my grandfather owned a construction company here in town. Um, but everybody's dead now. You know, it's me, and then I have a half brother in Charleston. I have a half brother in Tennessee and a half brother here in Rock Hill. Um, all right, so my background is going to be affected because of how I was raised. So when I see my mom going through so much stuff with my daddy and the courts and her struggling, I told her, I said, one day, Mom, I told Mom, I said, well, I don't know, I might have been 10 or 11, 12 years old. Mama, why don't you call a lawyer and get them to help you? She said, I don't have the money. I said, well, you need help because my daddy knew how to just sweet talk people like crazy, and she could never win. Every time she'd take him to court for child support, which was only supposed to be $30 a week for two kids, she couldn't even get that, y'all. Okay. So I know how it is for single parents to struggle. All right. So what's that got to do with real estate? Well, we didn't have nowhere to live, y'all. We were living with family, house to house to house. I lived in Rock Hill with my grandma and with my mom. We lived in Monroe. We lived in Lexington, North Carolina. That's the three places I have lived in the Carolinas. Okay. So it just built a fire in me that I wanted to help the less fortunate people because we wasn't getting any help. Okay. And that needed to change. So I didn't get to go to law school. So let's just skip that part. But when I was in the fifth grade, I was 10 years old. My mama told us one day, and I don't, I think we was living with my grandma again over in Rock Hill Homes. Now, if you know Rock Hill Homes, that was that was like a poor to middle class neighborhood. We went from the frying pan straight into the fire, y'all. That's how desperate my mom was to have a place of her own. So, through her connections with where she was working at, she knew one of the fire chiefs here in town, and he had rental property, investment property. And he told her that he had a trailer that he was going to sell, and would she be interested in buying it? Well, my mama didn't have that kind of money. She said, the only way I can do that is just make payments. He said, that's fine. He said, now you'll have to pay lot rent because it's on a lot. Um, but you got to pay the lot rent and then you'll have to pay me. Okay. But y'all, it was a 2-bedroom trailer. There's a bedroom on each end, one bathroom. The washing machine was in the bathroom, and the living room kitchen was one like in the middle. That was it. And me and my brother had to share a room. We had twin beds, and Mama had a room to herself, and it had room for her bed. That was about it, and maybe a little small dresser. But y'all, we was so happy. We had a yard to play in. Um, that was hers, and my mom was on cloud nine. It wasn't our land, and let me tell you where it was at. The reason I'm telling you this, I grew up on the Mill Hill in Rock Hill, South Carolina. What's the Mill Hill? It's where all the mill workers lived, close to the mills, and it was poverty. My address was, I think, 926 Spring Street. If you go down Willowbrook Road where it turns into the 4 lane, I lived there when that 4 lane was being made. Now I was going to Sullivan Junior High School then, um, seventh grade I think, when that road started. So I don't know what year that is. I'd have to think about it. Um, but from our trailer, I could see the road being built, and nobody was beside us. So we had like the biggest lot because there was nobody beside us, and so it was kind of private, But it was really nice. Um, so I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like to not have anything and to live week to week. Heck, I still do that now. Um, I know what it's like for your friends and their parents to be poor because I was one of them. Okay. And they talk about the Prince Charming coming into the scene. Well, my mom actually met a man that she had been working with, and she was working at a trucking company. And they were going to close that company down and relocate to Cleveland, Ohio. So the truck driver that my mom met, she was working in the office there. He said, "Will you please go out and have a cup of coffee with me?" And the rest is history. They ended up getting married and relocating to Cleveland, Ohio. And I was in the ninth grade at Sullivan Junior High, 14 years old. Go to next video. This has done been 10 and a half minutes.